This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
The biggest icon in podcasting.
Welcome in, everybody, to this week's episode of the DocNJock Wrestling Podcast. This is episode 198. I'm your host, Adam the Jock Strozinski. On today's show, what's going on with Alexa Bliss? Where's she going to be? We got the inside scoop on that, as well as Goldberg, Lashley. When's that taking place? Is it going to happen on this Monday Night Raw? Because Goldberg's showing up. We got the inside scoop on that one as well. Of course, we're going to take a look at what's going on in the world of wrestling. We did just have the first night of the WWE Draft that took place on SmackDown. Of course, we got to review the Extreme Rules pay-per-view. And doing it with me, as always, he's the one. He's the only. He is the Macho Man, Randy Savage. He is the Doc, John Macaroon. What's up, cuz?
Man, what a great week of wrestling. Oh, my goodness, starting with the pay-per-view. Had an opportunity finally to sit down and enjoy a pay-per-view. It was so good, especially after the craziness that took place at the Lions game. Got home right to sit down to see this crazy pay-per-view that was Extreme Rules. And it kind of, I guess, went the way in which you and I thought. And then it just rolled into a great week with Raw. Definitely, in regards to AEW, was just on point, on brand. And I'm so excited to do this broadcast, baby. Kick off the weekend. It's all good, baby. Maybe Kenny will actually download this one and unmute us. Maybe he'll actually take the time to listen to this broadcast. I didn't know Kenny was a clout chaser. I thought that he was just somebody that would stay in the background, listen to the show. But then when he wants some credit, I'm telling you, cuz, everybody loves credit. Quick story. Somebody came up to me at the Lions, was like, why didn't you cite us? And I'm like, oh my God, dude, I put radio. You wanted me to put radio and the ticket? Oh my God, dude. I was like, okay. Made me feel good. And I'm like, oh good, this is sweet. We're getting reads from everywhere. Same thing with Kenny. He's like, you guys better credit me on this idea that we got. And we're like, dude, we say your name every single week. You got to
every week we shout Kenny out.
Every week, you know. He was the first voice on this network in my basement. He was the first guy to plug in and start talking. So if he doesn't know the impact, but you know what it is? It's so true. Just like wrestlers, they just need their ego stroked. They need a little bit of pet. Like, good job, buddy. Kenny, good job, man. You have
Kenny
good
needs
ideas.
His ego stroked, eh?
Kenny, good job, Kenny. You did good. You're still in our text chain, and you're the best one. You're the one with the best content. You're the one with the most interesting ideas. All your takes are luscious.
Well,
that's why we bring him up.
I will say this. Kenny has a great mind for wrestling. He really does.
Oh, man.
If we were to ever turn this into a three-man show, or if I'm ever not there, Kenny's usually the number one guy. If we were to turn this into a three-man show, Kenny would be that guy, because he's got such a great mind for the world of wrestling, and he's got great visions, and he understands things so well. He would be a fantastic booker. It's unreal. So all due respect to Kenny. He is fantastic when it comes to the wrestling stuff, and we appreciate him. He is very, very entertaining in our group chat. I wish we could somehow show the world some of these messages that go on between us.
I want to say this,
it might get us in trouble.
Because I want to say this. Have you ever seen Bruce Pritchard and Kenny in the same room together?
Never.
Interesting. Let's hit the
All right, let's get back
rules.
to this pay-per-view.
Yeah, what'd you think of it?
I was going to ask you that. Look, on a scale of 1 to 5, I'm going to give this pay-per-view a 2.5. And look, I feel like I grade WWE extremely harsh. And it's because you see what really good content is on AEW. So, of course, you're going to compare and contrast. And I just felt like this pay-per-view, there were things that took place where we were kind of like, all right, yeah, it all kind of makes sense on what they were doing. So there wasn't nothing that was nonsensical here, which is great for WWE. That's like a huge kudos. But this was one of those pay-per-views where I almost wish that I would have just stayed watching the football game that was taking place on Sunday night, because I was flipping back and forth between this and the football game on Sunday night. And it just, I felt like I got more out of that football game than I did out of this pay-per-view. And I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. I can understand where you're coming from because of what we've seen in the past. Extreme Rules used to always bring it, with violence and with intrigue and stuff like that. It just seemed like a pay-per-view that was executing, a lot of the culmination of what was going on. But I don't think it was to the degree in which everybody was like, oh, this is great and everything like that. So I think there was, I think what it was after the Usos defeated the Street Profits, I think the show kind of took a dip and then it just never really kind of reached the crescendo. Maybe Damian Priest, Sheamus, and the Jeff Hardy match was okay. But then after that, it just didn't seem like much of the pay-per-view hit the same crescendo. I think you might have peaked maybe midway through the show. Yeah. And I think that's where everything kind of just went to a point where everybody's like, it peaked, I think, after Damian Priest is what a lot of people said.
It just kind of fell apart. So, we start the show off with Liv Morgan. She defeats Carmella via pinfall. Again, this match was extremely rushed and put together. There was not a huge backstory here, but it was your kickoff show. Now, what confuses me is when we were going through and we were laying out the matches, we did have a match between Big E and between Bobby Lashley. Instead, what we ended up getting was the New Day, all three members, defeating Bobby Lashley, AJ Styles, and Omos via pinfall. This match was never promoted. This match was never talked about. Yet you use this match to kick off your pay-per-view. Why would you start a show with a match that you don't promote?
Sometimes you gotta give a little surprise or get some people on the card that maybe you think last minute you want to see. But yeah, absolutely. It wasn't, nothing special to me.
I don't know why you would open your show with that when, like you said, we had a fantastic match between the Usos, who ended up defeating the Street Profits to retain their tag team championships. That match was great. You could have kicked the show off with that. That would have been a fantastic way to start. This was something that was promoted. Generally with a pay-per-view, you want to promote this. You want to get viewers, and the way to do that is to do that on those lead-up shows. They did a really bad job with this first match of doing that. Nobody knew what was going on. They just kind of came out, and you're like, all right, well, I guess this is the match. Like I said, the Usos and the Street Profits had a great match. Charlotte ends up defeating Alexa Bliss via pinfall to retain the title. In our news and notes segment, we're going to talk about what's going on with Alexa Bliss and what kind of explains the reason for her not dethroning Charlotte Flair here. I want to get your take because at the end of this match, Charlotte Flair basically destroys Lily and just kind of destroys everything that is Alexa Bliss's motif at this point. So much so that Alexa Bliss at some point takes an Alka-Seltzer tablet, puts it in her mouth, and as she's going up the ramp, she's kind of crying all over the place, and the camera angle shoots down onto Alexa Bliss, almost like it's like a porn shot, like a point of view porn shot, and you can see into her mouth, and you can see the Alka-Seltzer tablet not dissolving the way it's supposed to make the foam come out of her mouth. What did you make of the bad camera work with this?
It made no sense. I wasn't fond of it. I think this was the point where in our group chat, Kenny was like, you do realize people do understand production. And people do care about it, and people wonder why it's not to the point where it's believable. It just looked fake, right? It did not look up to WWE standards, especially when you've seen the cinematography that has taken place in some of these film matches. It just failed to deliver. Maybe it was just too hard to execute with everything going on. But yeah, I wasn't a fan of it.
Yeah, it wasn't either. Now, like you said, this show really seemed to kind of peak here with this next match. Damian Priest defeats Sheamus and Jeff Hardy via pinfall. Again, fantastic match. Damian Priest is kind of your guy. This is your future. You're looking at it right now. Damian Priest has a rocket strapped to his back. Didn't surprise either one of us that he was going to win. It was predictable, but it was a really good, solid match. Both Sheamus and Jeff Hardy always bring it. Next, we had Becky Lynch retaining against Bianca Belair. This was due to some interference from Sasha Banks. Now, I'm a huge Becky Lynch fan. I'm a massive Becky Lynch fan. I watched SmackDown the other night, and she was on commentary, and I loved every moment of it. Every moment of it. I think my girlfriend was annoyed because I was like, she's so funny. And she's like, she's not. And I was like, she is, though. Becky Lynch's last couple of matches, and she's only really had two, and they both have been against Bianca Belair, they haven't been very good. This match wasn't very good. It was okay, and I know there might be some ring rust with her coming back. She's in great shape, but this wasn't very good. Sasha Banks coming out, when Sasha Banks came out, normally when a a star returns and they interfere this way, there's usually this huge pop. Sasha Banks came out and I was kind of like, oh, all right, whatever. This is what we're doing. To me, it felt flat. To me, this whole entire feud between Becky Lynch, Bianca Belair, and now integrating Sasha Banks, it doesn't add any life for me. And to me, it feels like it's almost a rudderless ship and it doesn't have any direction. And I'm not really a huge fan. What's your take on adding Sasha Banks into the mix with Becky Lynch and Bianca Belair?
Boo. Yeah, it was, obviously Sasha Banks is someone you always kind of want to keep an eye on. She's always great. But, yeah, you just want to see the culmination of a feud that people were interested in because of the fact that Bianca had lost her title in like less than a minute. But, this is what WWE does. It's like the decisions in which they go into aren't ones where you're like, wow, this is spectacular. You're just always kind of left with, well, okay, you can see that you needed to give something to Sasha. And she's been in the mix with these two as well. But you just sometimes just want to see a payoff of a match. And maybe sometimes I know the trios matches and, fatal four ways and triple threat matches, they kind of also help performers a little bit because, you're not exactly the focal point. You can kind of rest a little bit as two people can go after it. But I'm not really a fan of, triple threats, four-way, 4-on-4. That's just never been my thing. I'm a major fan of two people get in the ring, tell the story, get in, get out. And I think the other production aspect that I think everybody was talking about, and especially in our group, why are they doing now commercials during entrances? That's the best part of one of the best parts, I think, of shows is when the person comes out, you get invested or you boo and you're like, okay, what's the confidence? What's their persona? How do you get into it? To chop that off for capital gain, I think is stupid. I think that I would even do it even if you're going to have to rank it in terms of what's the least miserable choice, have the entrances and then just go to commercial and just start the match in the middle if you're going to be that crass about it. But I think entrances should always be respected, and they haven't been, especially this week. I think it was more noticeable to us. So this is what WWE does. But the match was enjoyable. I thought the match was okay in regards to the women. I think they're all trying to shine, especially those three. They're trying to one-up each other. You can see the competitiveness there.
I mean, yeah, they're all fantastic. I don't know. It just, for me, it just seems almost like you're forcing this story, and I'm not a huge fan of it. Another one. This is what the main event was. Something that I really don't know how to feel about it. I don't feel good about it. I know that much. We had Roman Reigns defeat Finn Balor to retain his title. And we talked about this beforehand. We kind of figured that Finn wasn't going to win. Even though he's the demon, the demon's never lost. We assumed Finn wasn't going to win because Roman Reigns is the moneymaker right now. And they've got things set up in Saudi Arabia coming up in a couple of weeks between Roman Reigns and Brock Lesnar. And it was all very weird. Finn Balor comes out to not the Demon's music, to some kind of remix of the Demon's music mixed with his entrance music, which to me didn't help get the Demon character over any. And then you have this match, and Finn's doing a great job. All of a sudden, towards the end, the lights go down, gets dark, and then there's this red hue around the arena, and the camera zooms in on Finn Balor, who is basically humping the ground. You've got the announcers being like, Finn Balor's possessed. He's possessed. The demon persona's back. Well, wasn't the demon persona supposed to be back when Finn Balor came to the ring? That was why he went to the demon? I'm now confused. And they started playing his original demon entrance theme music as the lights are down and he's gyrating on the floor. And you're like, okay, this might be cool. We'll see. He gets into the ring, climbs up onto the top rope to do the coup de grace. And the rope snaps. He falls on the ground. This leads to a spear. He ends up getting pinned. It's the end. What did you make of this ending? Because I thought it was, one, distasteful to do to Finn Balor. Two, how does the ring snap? I mean, you have 300-pound men jumping off the top rope. Finn Balor basically weighs $120 with quarters in his pocket. And you mean to tell me that the ring's gonna snap? What? Right. I felt like the ending was poor. I thought it kind of shit on the demon character.
I mean, you had to come up with a real creative way to have the demon lose, and so the ring breaks. Okay, a guy who's less than 250 pounds breaks the ring. Okay,
legitimately, I think Finn Balor weighs 165 pounds.
Yeah, exactly.
There are mornings where I take shits bigger than Finn Balor.
Exactly. So I just think that they should have just kept it with Finn Balor, because here's the thing that sucks now about WWE is when you know that the Demon now has been devalued. You haven't seen this character in over a year. And what was the character? The character was when he shows up, he's invincible. You've taken that away. And now it's like everything that you can hold sacred for someone's character that's really cool and and profitable and money driven and can put somebody over. It seems like WWE's like, no, let's not give the fans what they want. I think that it was something that we knew was going to happen. So when you see it live, you're just like, hey, it was a good match. Finn Balor is main event. He deserves to be there, but nobody believed he ever had a chance. So it kind of takes the sting out of it a little bit, but it was a solid match. I thought that he kept his own and Roman Reigns stepped it up a little bit. And I think kind of for people in Detroit to hear Pat McAfee drop the crowd is booing Roman Reigns worse than the Lions fans did the owner of the team. It was really hilarious to hear. The crowd was into it, so that's fine, in regards to the fact that they had disdain for Roman Reigns. It just sucks that it was at the expense of, like, the Demon. You could have just had Finn Balor. You could have had the leather entrance and have it. You just didn't have to do the Demon, so that would have been my preference, so we'll see.
Yeah, in the end, we ended up splitting the point with the picks because we both got 5 matches picked correctly. So, like you said, this kind of went the way we thought it was going to go. It's just sometimes things get lost in the execution, and that is, I think, usually our biggest hang-up is how things get executed. At this moment in time, I hold a 5-point lead over you. 9-4 is the score. Shit. Let's get into Monday Night Raw. So Big E ends up retaining his WWE Championship in a steel cage against Bobby Lashley to close out Raw. Now, this match kicked off Raw, and then it got bumped to the main event of Raw, so you got to basically see this match twice. The only difference is the main event was in the steel cage.
Yes.
So apparently WWE is stretching for show ideas and filler here, so this is what we're going to do. Now, Big E wins, beats Bobby Lashley, and it seems like we're finally done with this, which is great, only to have Drew McIntyre come out and challenge him. Now, originally when we put this together, the thought process was Drew McIntyre was staying on Raw. We go to Friday, and that has changed a little bit because we were all kind of like, do we really want to see Drew McIntyre versus Big E? And the question was, is that best for business? And obviously that is not going to take place for business unless something crazy happens on Monday night. So I guess my next question for you would be, with us in this weird state of flux, because we've got one more night of the draft, so you're going to have one more character coming over to Raw, and you're going to have somebody else going to SmackDown. There's going to the lineups are going to shift because when we get to the SmackDown, we're going to talk about what happens to Drew McIntyre. Who would you like to see if you had a fantasy book? Who would you like to see Monday Night Raw pair Big E up against?
Oh man, that's so good too, right? Who deserves the next opportunity? Who's next in line, right? There's so many that you would think. Do you go younger? Do you go mid-card? Do you go upper echelon? It's really tough, too, because at this point in time, with the roster kind of the way it is, you've kind of seen a lot of it, in terms of who's there. Naturally speaking, potentially, maybe. To be honest, I think there's one name that makes the most sense, and that's Edge. Because of the fact that he's such a polarizing character, somebody that people are invested in, for Big E to have the opportunity to go over on him, that further elevates Big E, and it tells a story because, I know Edge has come back now, and maybe he gets that final run, but after like several losses to Roman Reigns and to, others that have the title, I think a program with Big E and Edge just based on respect, and things like that could be very entertaining, especially, with both of, I think Big E now kind of coming into his own with promos. Why not Edge? I think that would be great. Anybody else that is believable at this point in time? No, I think it's Edge. That would be something I would be entertained to see at least.
Yeah, initially, that was the person that popped in my head right away. I was like, well, why not Edge? But then I start kind of thinking a little bit more, and I'm like, well, Edge is kind of a face, and do you go face? And that doesn't usually work out really, really well when you do that. So I'm like, okay, who could we kind of sell with Big E? Well, we do have one more day of drafting, and Edge is already over here, and Edge is currently looped into a storyline with Seth Rollins. So I think Big E and Seth Rollins could probably tear the house.
Oh, very nice.
That could be a really interesting way to go. It'll be interesting to see what Raw does. We'll have to tune in Monday to kind of see what takes place, and we'll get more fallout from the draft. Speaking of the draft, let's just kind of move into what took place on Friday night. Let's just kind of run through the draft picks real quick. So SmackDown keeps Roman Reigns. They get Charlotte Flair. They get Drew McIntyre, which I think is a really good move. If you've got Roman Reigns, who's the guy who can challenge Roman Reigns? Drew McIntyre and Roman Reigns would tell a really good story. Yep. So I think that's a solid move. New Day ends up going to SmackDown, which I think makes all of us upset because Big E and New Day were all part of the Raw family, and now New Day gets put over onto SmackDown. Happy Corbin and Madcap Moss go to SmackDown. Hit Row gets called up from NXT and goes to SmackDown. Naomi goes to SmackDown, and Jeff Hardy goes to SmackDown. So I think SmackDown did a pretty good job with their roster. It looks nice. Now let's look at what they did on Raw. Raw gets Big E. So again, like we talked about, that split with New Day. Bianca Belair is on Monday Night Raw now. RK Bro is on Monday Night Raw. Edge is on Monday Night Raw. Rhea Ripley and Nikki ASH are on Raw. Now again, they're the women tag team title holders, so they can kind of bounce around wherever they want and go wherever they want. Keith Bearcat Lee is on Monday Night Raw. Rey and Dominic Mysterio go to Monday Night Raw. And Austin Theory gets called up to Monday Night Raw. Out of all of these call-ups and all of these moves, what was the biggest surprise of the first night of the draft for you?
I liked how it went down. So I wouldn't say surprise per se. I think that I like the way it's shaking out, like you just said, with Drew going over. I would have maybe put Roman Reigns on Raw. I think that potentially speaking, you could have did a flip where you have the entire New Day go over to SmackDown and you just flip title holders and things like that. Early on, I think the one that kind of caught a lot of us off guard a little bit is moving Bianca Belair off of Thursday, especially with the fact that you had a money feud. You had a feud that people were invested in, and people kind of wanted to see it get paid off. And Bianca makes her name, and I joked about the reasons why, which I will not broadcast here. But I hope that Bianca does not get buried over on Monday Night Raw, because you and I and everybody that kind of has been observing has been saying Friday night's national television audience has been kind of where the hot angles are. What are they going to do with Bianca? Well, you know what they're going to do. Bianca's going to have a hair match, and someone's going to snip that thing right off her head. And, okay, what kind of angle are they going to put her in? Now, she's a draw. She is somebody that you have to pay attention to, and hopefully she does not allow the weird creative decisions by WWE to take her shine. But I would have kept Bianca Belair on SmackDown. She's been the highlight. I hope she doesn't get, kind of lost in the mix there on Raw, because a lot of people do. And that's why I never, just as a quick summation, I've never liked the drafts. I just think that every story should tell, imagine a story like this. Sasha Banks does something to Bianca on Raw, and you're left with a cliffhanger. And the next thing is, stay tuned to Friday to see what happens. Now you got 3 days to build it up through beefs on social media. Bianca can go on a podcast on a Wednesday, and you can build that anticipation where you're like, oh my God, what's going to happen? You open the show, Bianca comes out. What happens? You build some intrigue. But now, when everybody's split and things like that, you gotta wait. And so I just think that the company with the split, I've never found it to be ever beneficial in an era where if you have a star, let's see the star on Monday and Friday, especially with that schedule. Monday, Friday is great. You could see the same person twice. Like, who wouldn't want to see Drew McIntyre who wouldn't want to see Drew McIntyre twice a week, or Roman Reigns? So that's just how we do it, But yeah, Bianca Belair was my surprise. You?
I think my biggest surprise, I had two of them. One was splitting up the New Day. I don't understand that. Like, it's obvious to everybody that these three guys work best together. And I know you want Big E to kind of go on his own and you want to try to build Big E up a little bit. I get that and I understand that. But these guys have such a connection to the crowd and such a connection with the fan base when all three of them are together. And they do their best work when they are together. You don't have to have them wrestle together all the time. Big E can go do his own thing. But keep them as a unit, and I think it works the best. And then, like you said, Bianca Belair basically going as the second pick to Monday Night Raw. Mm-hmm. You do realize out of all those names that I named, there is not one female champion besides the tag team champions on Monday Night Raw. So right now, SmackDown has two champions. And you were talking about that feud that she's in right now with Becky. Well, the way this is gonna play out, in WWE does this, in credit to Kenny, he said in our group chat, WWE does a really bad job of insulting the intelligence of their crowd. We all understand what's going to take place here on Monday Night Raw. Seth Rollins is going to come over because obviously Edge is over. And you're going to get Becky Lynch over because Becky Lynch is married to Seth Rollins and they keep families together. Like Naomi goes to SmackDown, there's this concern that you might have the Usos get drafted to Monday Night Raw. Well, that's not happening because Naomi's on SmackDown. Naomi got put on SmackDown because she's married to one of the Usos. Like they have this rule where they like to keep families together, which makes sense because they're on the road so damn much. Totally makes sense. It is one of those things where it's a little bit frustrating if you're a fan because you can see through all the BS and you're like, okay, cool. So like we know what's going to happen. Like you can't have both female champions on SmackDown. Not going to happen. How I feel this is going to play out. Bianca's over on Raw. Becky's going to go to Raw. I think the one time that they tangle and one time that they meet up, will be at Crown Jewel, where it'll be Bianca, Becky, and Sasha Banks. I think Sasha Banks stays on SmackDown though, because I think she is a draw. And you do have to remember what goes on with both of these entities is essentially at the behest of larger corporations. So Fox is pulling a lot of the strings on SmackDown. NBC is pulling a lot of the strings on Monday Night Raw. And they have to basically keep all of these people engaged and keep all of these people happy. Now, the one big thing that kind of comes out of all this is Brock Lesnar showed up on SmackDown. Yeah. And Brock Lesnar basically claimed himself as a free agent.
Of course he was.
What do you make of that?
Well, Brock's a free agent because everybody knows that when Brock shows up, he gets a hefty, fat-ass paycheck. Yeah. So whenever they need a rating spike, Brock Lesnar's going to show up. So let's just say that. You should have just said that. That would have been funny. He's like, I'm paid to show up whenever they call me, baby. And when I look at that phone, those numbers are definitely worth showing up for. So I like this version of Brock. I mean, the hairdo is appealing. He's just a dude you can't not look at. And he's kind of been talking a little more. So look, it's Brock Lesnar. You're not going to see a whole heck of a lot of them in ring, per year. You got to wait. But hey, when he gets out there and he stares down Roman Reigns, it's interesting. The crowd still pops for him. He's their attraction. He's the big guy. So bottom line, Roman Reigns, give him credit too. This whole angle that now with Paul Heyman has progressed. The Bloodline has been awesome. Their musical entrances are always must-see. So it's just playing out, and let's see what happens. It's time to kick off that promotion for Crown Jewel, baby.
You want to give us your review of what took place on Impact?
Yeah, baby, a big return. Somebody who hadn't been at Impact in well over 5 years. You had the return of Christopher Daniels, who kind of has been a staple over there at Impact. And he competed in his first match with Impact since 2014. So Madman Fulton was the victim there, and he got the W. Christopher Daniels went over. The match was okay. I thought it could have been better. I thought that Daniels looked crisp, and Fulton is very solid for what he does. But it wasn't. It was a match where you were like, okay, maybe they would have needed some more time, like at house shows, to kind of get some chemistry over. But it is what it is. So I thought that the show in and of itself was pretty good. I really liked the street fight between William Morrissey and Eddie Edwards, with Eddie Edwards getting over strong, physical, hardcore match, and Eddie Edwards shows that, whoa, this is a character that can fit the bill, plays the part pretty well, and Morrissey doesn't lose a whole heck of a lot in the main event by losing this matchup. Moose hits the ring after the match and brutalized Eddie, while Morrissey forced Alicia to watch as the show went off the air. I thought that Impact, after the pay-per-view leading to their next one, has really used the relationship with AEW to their best ability, where there's going to be surprises, there's going to be some things that take place that you can be invested in. I thought the Influence versus Jordan Grace and Rachel Ellering match was definitely something here where the talent was worked, and so it was an above average contest for the women, and I thought that, for the Influence getting over, I thought it was a good match, especially for where it was placed on the card. So I was pretty happy with it. The show in and of itself, Impact, is just solid. You're not going to get like super high end production. You're not going to get the whole bells and whistles. But for a company with D'Lo Brown, back there doing the commentary, you get a sense that it's a company just now finding their way, and they always put on good pay-per-views. And I think there's good things coming ahead for them as well in the coming future. So definitely B+. I think that it was a decent show, and really one that rounds out. I think it, in regards to us passing on NXT, you're not missing anything if you just jump over from NXT to Impact. I think there's characters that you could definitely get behind in the X division with some of the main event guys, Moose, Sami Callihan, Violent by Design, Rhino. There's some characters there that you could get behind, and so we'll see how this progresses going forward. But B+ show, I thought it was very entertaining. Get back there and watch it, or read the results. Good things are happening, and especially look out for Eddie Edwards as he continues kind of a little push here moving forward.
I love that Rhino's still getting it done all these years later.
Right?
Zone.
Yeah.
Fantastic. So you said that you gave it a B+. I'm going to give something an A+. We had a fantastic match on AEW on Dynamite between Sammy Guevara and Miro.
Yes.
And it was tear the house down. It was in Rochester, New York. It was basically home of Brody Lee. They did a great job of celebrating Brody Lee's life on Wednesday with Dynamite. Yeah. Sammy Guevara at the end of the match gives a fantastic speech to honor Brody Lee and to honor the TNT Championship, which he ended up winning by defeating Miro.
What?
Was Sammy Guevara the right choice to be the TNT champion?
Absolutely, baby. I think that when you saw the reaction of the crowd, maybe at first my initial reaction was, well, this guy's a little bit controversial. Maybe he's still a little young. Is he mature enough to handle it? But based on the character and based on the reaction of the crowd, they liked it. So, absolutely. And I think this is a great thing for what Miro can do, because Miro's such a name. For him to get the W, I think there was an element of surprise. I never would have thought that Sammy Guevara was going to be the one to get over there to take the title off of Miro. So I think it was very, very, very much welcomed by the crowd, and very much in line with what I think that belt can represent. In lieu of them having like an Intercontinental title and kind of that U.S. title kind of thing, I would say that TNT having the belt represented by Sammy Guevara is going to be a good thing. I can't wait to see who some of the feuds are he's going to get into with, probably a rematch with Miro in the coming weeks.
See, I don't know if we're moved far enough away from all of the chaos that Sammy Guevara caused with some statements that were totally out of line. Now, yeah, he has repented, and yes, he said he was sorry, and he's gone through all the required stages that basically AEW and TNT required him to do. I don't know if now is necessarily the right time to make him a face of your company. And I think we both agree at some point he was going to become part of the face of the company, right? He is incredible in the ring. The guy's an amazing talker. He is outstanding. I just don't believe that at this moment right now, it should have been his time. I think you could have went in a different direction.
Jock bust out the haterade.
No haterade. It just, look, he really messed up. Like, some of the things he did, like when you start saying like you want to rape somebody, like that's a little bit uncalled for. You know,
online publicly for the world.
You're talking to a guy who has said a lot of uncalled for and uncouth things in his life. And for me to be like, hey, I'm going to throw a flag on that's saying something. So I don't know if the penance has been done yet. Now, all that being said, they tore the house down. It was a fantastic match. Solid. I think he will be great as the champion. I just don't know if it was the right time. All that being said, on Friday night, we were informed that former NXT product, former Ring of Honor product, one of my favorite guys to watch in the ring, Bobby Fish, will be Sammy Guevara's next challenge. Now, I'm just going to come out. I'm not even going to ask you the question. I'm just going to tell you what I felt. I was excited. I was pumped up. I love Bobby Fish. I think he is great. I think he's got a great look. I think he's fantastic in the ring. I think he is a guy who can stand on his own. For years and years and years and years, him and Kyle O'Reilly have been attached at the hip. I think he is great by himself. I think he is interesting. I don't feel necessarily the same way about Kyle O'Reilly. I kind of feel like Kyle O'Reilly's okay, but I think Bobby Fish is fantastic. So I am geared up for this. This will be taking place, I believe it's this Wednesday on Dynamite. Were you as excited as me, or were you just kind of like, all right, cool, this will be interesting?
Definitely very cool. I think that AEW is doing an amazing thing with everything going on. It's fresh, it's new, and people want to see these unique matchups. I think it's going to produce a lot of great contests here, and Bobby Fish, I think, is going to get highlighted. So, absolutely, I was just as impressed as you were. Awesome.
You want some news and notes? It's a very short segment for news and notes this week, but we've got some good information.
Absolutely, but real quick, before news and notes, I want to say you have to check out the last two Dark Side of the Rings with Onita and Chris Kanyon. They both were unique.
Oh, the Chris Kanyon one. I wanted to see that one.
I taped it. Yes, it's very good. Get back and see it. It's very crazy. You would not think some of the things that were revealed. And let's just say this. I'll say this for those that haven't seen it. When they go to the scene with the UPS truck, you're going to be surprised at what goes down there. And let's just say Chris Kanyon did lead a double life, and the pressure, the immense pressure that he must have felt to hide a deep, dark secret must have ate him up, and you feel bad for it. And that one's not good, but the Onita one, dude, that dude's crazy on the level of Terry Funk. And if you're a fan of Terry Funk, you're going to love the Dark Side of the Ring with Onita. That dude's crazy. That's a crazy MFer. And so definitely go check out those past two episodes. All right, cuz, hit me with this week's professional wrestling news and notes. What got your attention?
All right, so only two stories here. According to PW Insider, the stage is now set for Goldberg and Lashley to clash at Crown Jewel in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia on October 21st. Now, this will be the SummerSlam follow-up match. Remember SummerSlam, Bobby Lashley basically put Goldberg's kid in the Hurt Lock, and Goldberg had a damaged knee because of MVP. So this will be the follow-up match. This seems like it is stretched on for quite some time. But that will be what will be occupying Bobby Lashley until at least the middle of October. Now, Alexa Bliss was written off of TV with her loss at Extreme Rules. According to Mike Johnson of PW Insider, this is due to Bliss undergoing some sinus surgery. There's no clear date for her return. So what they did was they basically destroyed the entire character that she had going on. It'll be interesting to see what they do when they bring her back, because as she was leaving the ring at Extreme Rules, she took the head and basically the face of Lily, and she was holding onto it. It'll be interesting if she comes back with that same character, because they've been selling a ton of Lily merch. Like, it is just flying off the shelves. It'll be interesting if they come back with that, and that is now a new mask for her to wear. Especially having sinus surgery, it could provide some protection for her nose. So it'll be interesting to see what they do and how they reinvent Alexa Bliss, or maybe she just comes back as something completely different and they scrap all of it. So we'll have to see what takes place with Alexa Bliss. But that is it for this week's wrestling news and notes.
Make sure you follow Adam on Twitter at AdamRSTROZ. Make sure you follow Kenny on Twitter at TVChips and give him some credit. Give him credit for all the contributions he's made to the Doc and Jock podcast, all the love he's given to the YouTube channel. He's our YouTube MVP. probably one of the only people that actually clicks it because it's really our site for archiving. We don't promote it. It's just our place where we can host every one of our wild episodes. We can look back and we go, oh yeah, the Lions lost on a field goal late? Sure. But we got podcasts where they lost on Hail Mary. We got podcasts where we lost on penalties not being called. We got podcasts where wrestling main events happen and big surprises with CM Punk. So our YouTube fan for our archives is Kenny. Follow him on Twitter at TV Chips, where he brings you the strong opinions on the world of professional wrestling. And make sure you follow the network at Detroit Podcast whenever these shows are going on. If you got something to weigh in on, if you've agreed or disagreed with anything that we've said, let us know. And want to give a shout out to all those who have messaged us consistently, who are big wrestling fans in town. So anywhere that you listen and find your favorite podcast, we are there. Apple, Spotify, TuneIn, iHeart, anywhere at all that you love to listen to your podcast, type in Detroit Sports Podcast, and we've been going strong since 2013. Follow us at Detroit Podcast. Leave us a review. We love it. And podcasting time is over, baby. We are going to let it rip, watch some more wrestling, and bring you another episode, another quality broadcast on the Doc and Jock Wrestling Podcast.